In the face of nature's might, we find both beauty and challenge. But within chaos lies opportunity. It's not just about survival, it's about readiness. A readiness born from knowledge, solidarity, and resilience. Together, we can arm ourselves against uncertainty. Let's embrace a culture of preparedness where every individual, family, and nation stands ready to confront the unknown. In this video, let's learn a deeper understanding about disaster, readiness, and risk reduction.
Hey there, disaster warriors! Welcome back to our series on disaster risk management. Before we dive into today's lesson, let's kick things off with a quick energizer to get those brains buzzing.
Let's play a game called Guess the Word. Take a look at the following pictures and identify what it indicates. Let's start!
The answer is hazard.
The answer is exposure. The answer is vulnerability.
Alright, now that we are all warmed up, let's jump into today's topic. Understanding hazards, exposure, and vulnerability.
After going through this lesson, you are expected to differentiate between hazards, exposed elements, and their vulnerabilities in a given particular situation, give examples of hazard, exposed elements, and their vulnerabilities from historical events within the Philippines, and suggest mitigation, adaptation, and preparedness strategies from managing disaster risk based on experience from previous disaster whenever possible.
So, what exactly are hazards, exposures, and vulnerability? And how do they relate to disaster risk? Let's break it down.
Hazards are those dangerous phenomena or conditions that can cause harm, whether it's to people, property, or the environment. To give you a clearer picture, let's look at some examples for historical events here in the Philippines. For example, Typhoon Haiyan 2013. Take Typhoon Haiyan, for instance, with wind speeds reaching up to 315 km per hour. It caused massive destruction, including widespread flooding and landslides, making it a prime example of a natural hazard.
Exposure refers to the people, property, or systems that are in hazard-prone areas and are therefore at risk of being affected. Let's see how this played out during Typhoon Haiyan. For example, vulnerable coastal communities. Coastal communities in the path of the typhoon were highly exposed to its destructive force, with their homes, infrastructure, and livelihood at risk of being swept away by the storm surge and intense winds.
Vulnerability. Vulnerability, on the other hand, refers to the characteristics and circumstances that make a community, system, or asset susceptible to the damaging effects of a hazard. Let's explore this further. For example, poor infrastructure. In the case of Typhoon Haiyan, communities with poorly constructed houses and inadequate infrastructure were more vulnerable to the storm's impact, resulting in greater loss of life and property damage.
Now that we understand the key terms, how can we effectively manage disaster risk? Let's discuss some strategies. Prevention involves eliminating hazards or exposure to them. For example, enforcing building codes to ensure structures can withstand typhoons. Mitigation focuses on reducing the hazard, exposure, or vulnerability. This could include building seawalls to protect coastal communities from storm surges.
Adaptation involves modifying behavior or infrastructure to reduce exposure and vulnerability. For instance, developing early warning systems to alert communities about approaching hazard. By implementing these strategies, we can build resilience and better prepare ourselves for future disaster. But before we wrap up, let's put our knowledge to the test with a fun activity.
I want you to think about your own community. What hazards are you exposed to? How vulnerable is your community to these hazards? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
That's all for today, Disaster Warriors. Remember, understanding hazards, exposures, and vulnerability is key to managing disaster risk effectively. Stay safe, informed, and I'll see you in the next video.